My name is Joel Chacha. Even as today we focus on the Nane demos. In studio, I'll be joined shortly by Jackson Kihara, an interdicted prisons warden protester, Vivian Tar, communications and public affairs expert, and as well Dr. Isaac Hassan, who is a governance expert. A conversation that you can't afford to miss. That is in our first segment. In a second segment, that is from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., I'll also be joined by three guests in studio. That is Bonaya Rover, Kenyatta University president, Ikenye Uno, a youth leader, and Steve Mbogwa, who is the council member of the Law Society of Kenya. Wall-to-wall coverage of the Nane demos right here on K24. But remember, our set house Nairobi at around 9 a.m. President William Ruto will be swearing in his new cabinet, which he has already gazetted. 19 out of 20 were approved by the National Assembly. But even before getting to the newspaper review, the Central Bank of Kenya has announced changes to its currency denominations, marking a significant update, which includes signatures. The new 1,000 note will be released first, followed by other denominations in the coming months. Meanwhile, the Central Bank of Kenya has reduced its benchmark, that is CBR, by 25 basis points to 12.75%, reducing the cost of loans for the first time in 4 years. David Kagina with more.
CBK has announced 4 significant changes to Kenya's banknotes. The changes include the update of the signatures to those of the current governor of the Central Bank of Kenya, Dr. Kamau Thuge, and the signature of the Principal Secretary National Treasury, Dr. Chris Kipto, following the exit of Patrick Njoroge, who retired as CBK governor in mid-June last year.
The notes that we have, they are getting old, and therefore we need to get new notes. That's really the reason.
The new notes will have the year of print as 2024 and will also bear new security threads with color-changing effects that are specific to each denomination, with CBK saying the rest of the features remain the same as those of the series issued in 2019. The changes will affect the currency denominations of 50 shillings, 100 shillings, 200, 500 and 1,000 shillings notes.
The printing is being done by a German firm, and it's actually one of the best firms.
The release of the new banknotes will commence with 1,000 shillings, while other denominations will progressively follow in the coming months. Meanwhile, Central Bank has lowered the interest lending rate for the first time in 4 years from 13% to 12.75%, a move that is set to lower the cost of domestic borrowing, with banks expected to effect the changes. CBK says the drop is on the back of the easing inflation, coupled with a stabilized shilling and a resilient economic growth.
We would expect through the risk-based pricing model for the banks to continue to lower their rates. We will obviously monitor developments in that area and to see whether the banks are indeed using this risk-based pricing model.
David Kagina, K24, Nairobi.
Nairobi ODM leaders, led by the Nairobi ODM chairman, who is also the member of parliament for Makadara constituency, George Aladwa, are appealing to the organizers of the Thursday's mega protest to call them off. The leaders are urging the proponents of the protest, dubbed Nane, to give President William Ruto a chance to deliver on the demands, saying the move to form a broad-based government is an indication of goodwill from the president.
A month ago, the Gen Z held protests across the country to ventilate their displeasure in the Kenya Kwanza administration. This led to disbandment of the entire cabinet by His Excellency President William Ruto, which demonstrated a goodwill. Additionally, the head of state went ahead and nominated 20 cabinet secretaries, cutting across all regions and professions.
Kwa hivyo naomba kwa nafasi hii, kesho wale wamepanga mambo ya Nane, naomba wairishe hiyo Nane, tumpe rais nafasi ya kufanya kazi na kuona kwamba hii baraza ameteua na ile matakwa ya wale vijana wa Gen Z imesikizwa na iendelee kusikizwa. Kwa sababu wa vijana wameleta nchi kuchangamka na wametoa mwelekeo mzuri. Kwa hivyo wapewe nafasi yao bado waendelee kusikizwa na pia wakubali rais apewe nafasi yake ya kuendelesha nchi yetu ya Kenya. Na vile vile pia nataka kumshukuru kiongozi wetu wa ODM. Watu wamekuwa na mlaumu wakisema kwamba ati ODM imefanya makosa kupeana viongozi kwenda kuingia kwa serikali. Si nataka kusema kwamba kama ODM tunataka kuwatakia kila laheri. Hao viongozi wamekuwa katika ODM na wameongoza chama chetu vizuri.
Well, and as promised, it's time to now have the conversation on the Nane demos, but we begin with what is on our dailies. In studio, I'm joined by Vivian Ta. She is a communications and public affairs expert. Thank you so much for getting time this morning. And as well, Dr. Isaac Hassan, a governance expert, who is already here in studio. Thank you so much also for getting time this morning. Jackson Kihara, the interdicted prisons warden protester, will be joining us shortly right here on the New Dawn. Let's see what's on our dailies, beginning with the own publication, that is the People Daily. Splashes that public views were hot air in vetting. House team dismisses memoranda by Kenyans raising queries on integrity of candidates, and gang up to approve 19 cabinet picks set to be sworn in at the break of dawn today. President William Ruto will be swearing them in at 9 a.m. at State House. We will be bringing you those live updates right here on the New Dawn. Just to begin with Vivian, according to Kimani Ichung'wah, 656 submitted memoranda did not meet the requirements of the Public Appointments Act. And that's why perhaps we saw the 19 out of 20 cabinet secretaries being approved by the National Assembly. And in fact, already President William Ruto has gazetted them. I'm not sure why the rush. Could it be due to the fear, perhaps, of litigation?
I wouldn't know what his reasons are, but yes, it was pretty rushed, you know. By the end of the day yesterday, I think the name's already gazetted, and the swearing in is actually scheduled for today. It's like everything was fast-tracked. Maybe he's just eager to to get to work with the new cabinet, having dismissed the previous one about a month or so ago. So I don't know. It's a wait and see. Let's wait and see if this new team, okay, rather not new, partly old team will be able to deliver anything. But in relation to the public views, I really wish government institutions would give a little more weight, a little more thought, a little more consideration to views given by public. Of course, it's granted that some may be malicious and stuff like that, but not all views are to be considered as malicious. If they keep doing this, then they discourage and they basically look down on public participation. To strengthen public participation, people need to feel like their views are being considered, their views are being heard, Otherwise, it's pointless then to ask for, public memoranda on governance issues.
Well, I know to Dr. Isaac Hassan on the cover page of the People Daily, public views were hot air in vetting.
Joel, first I think we need to understand what procedures are in place in terms of vetting process, and it is crucial for our public to understand from the initial onset of when that process begins. And when the leader of the majority says much of the affidavits or memoranda that has been submitted does not meet the required constitutional threshold, it means then there's something that we are missing in terms of what we are expected to express. Sometimes you may want to express genuinely something that is valuable to the country, but the way we package it always affects largely its effect. And therefore, what is very crucial for us, I think, is that members of parliament have done their part And when they have done their part, and now trying to report back to the public, saying that indeed the memorandums did not meet the required threshold, then I think there's something also in terms of our public participation issues that needs to be addressed. And I think my opinion is that we need to take it through legal process or legal team on the documents that we submit, rather than just everyone rushing and just submitting a document that might not hold any, any strength. And therefore, I think they did their part, and they have got a loophole of disregarding the public's opinion. And that does not necessarily mean that the public did not also participate. They did participate, but they have not done the actual way of doing it or presenting their participation. Therefore, I think it's as a lesson learned, we need to, in future, because this is not the only time that Parliament will go into vet people, I think we need to approach it in a manner that is valuable to the panelists, so that they know if they don't address it, legal battles will also follow. In terms of why gazetting very quickly by the president, I think that's what I will have done as well. I mean, the president has been, in the midst of his operation, this was cut off by our young demonstrators, and now when the ministers were sent home, of course they left a vacuum, and when the process of vetting them has been completed and approval from Parliament has been achieved, I think the highest times for them to occupy the offices they are tasked with and do their work. Although I have an issue with the one who has not been vetted well, the one who has been
that is Stella Soy.
Yes, Soy, who has not been approved, because the logical reasoning that they have given is that she did not understand the docket she has been given. Is that part of the requirement? Are you supposed to be an expert of that particular docket, or you are supposed to be an expert in leadership and issues of governance in terms of institutional management? Because expertise at the helmet of an institution does not usually come very fast. It comes when you have joined the institution and you have your technocrats who are surrounding you, gives you the inside of that institution, and you are able to articulately express issues before you. However, when you are coming in, you are only supposed to come with skills that allows you to govern the institution, provide effective leadership, and of course learn how to policies and dissemination and proposals on issues related to policies are being done. Well, so I don't think if it was wise for one to say, they will have looked for another reason.
So those are not sufficient grounds.
They don't make actually grounds for vetting a cabinet secretary and denying the position, simply because it does not meet the requirement of appointing or requirement of the roles and responsibilities of a cabinet secretary.
And now we are joined by Jackson Kihara, an interdicted prisons warden protester. Good morning. Thank you so much for catching time this morning. We are focusing on the President William Ruto's new cabinet that is set to be sworn in at 9 a.m. this morning. And, the rush that is tactfully approached. By around 7 p.m., one will argue that courts are closed. And so that is when the National Assembly approved them. Before 9 p.m. last evening, they were already gazetted. And this morning at the break of dawn, they will be sworn in. Do you feel, if at all, Parliament has done its work properly by considering the views of Kenyans, and at the same time dancing to the tune of the demands by the Gen Zs? Should there be a rush to even swear them in?
So, thank you. First of all, thank you for inviting me over here. What I think as a young person, what I feel is like we have been betrayed, because the same mistake that was done has been done again, because some of the issues that the Gen Zs complained about the CSS being incompetent, the CS being nominated kwa fields zenye hawajui kazi yake, like I'll say like someone like Murkomen eko kwa department ya youth, so na feel ni kama ana ajui anything about that. And tulikuwa when we went to express when the young people went to express with the president, those are some of the issues that they raised. Walikuwa nasema ati au ma CSS wayuko able to perform hizo duties because wamewekwa places zenye hata wana experience. So and I think the same thing has been done. Unaona like Joho amewekwa pale kwa vitu yenye ajui. So I think the young people are just kizwa. That's what I feel.
So the public views that were not considered, first of all, did the Gen Zs participate in the public participation? That there was, a room to submit memoranda. In fact, even for the two that have not, for the two, that is the AG and the ESC, there is still room for that. I believe they have not yet closed, or if at all they closed then, do you feel the Gen Z, as much as they go on the streets, still relate to how they should approach such matters?
I think hakuna design Gen Z so wamekuwa listen to, because if you see even the CS nominees, our ma CS wote, some are from the opposition, and hakuna mtu mmoja hapo mwenye was from the young people. And alafu what we were telling the president pale express, there's nothing that imefanyika yenye hapa kwa CSS nominees.
Vivian, already just from Jackson, they take an issue with Murkomen being now in charge of their docket, the youths. I mean, is it a mockery?
Okay, first of all, there are two issues I want to address. The first one is the president has the prerogative constitutionally and going by law, and because we say Kenya is a nation, governed by the rule of law, the constitution allows the president to appoint basically anybody that he wants in whichever docket to make up his cabinet. But granted, of course, there were several issues that had been raised about CS Murkomen, but I don't think I've seen any tangible, documentation or anything against his suitability or capability to run, to be appointed in the office of cabinet secretary. And if there were, I think especially issues to do with maybe corruption and stuff like that, if there's proof of such kind of things, then someone like that should not, of course, hold office. But like Daktari has said, most people, when you're appointed to the office of CS, it's not so much because you are an expert in that particular docket. It's more about your leadership capability, expertise, and your ability to understand governance and contribute to, the president's agenda. Because, when he came into office, he has a manifesto that he's pushing, an agenda that he's pushing. So unless there's something tangible or specific that disqualifies some of these nominees. I mean, I always go back to, if we could have Rashid Echesa appointed as CS for sports, Aisha Juma was appointed before. Those are not the best examples, of course, because in my view, those are like some of the most incompetent people we ever had, taking up dockets of CS position. But specifically to the Murkomen issue, I think he's educated, and I think, given the opportunity, he may be able to serve. And if he doesn't, then, the president still has the prerogative of removing him and probably appoint someone else. But in my view, I think maybe one of the very strong reasons that probably the president reappointed him was, remember, he was elected senator in Elgeyo Marakwet, and to take up the CS position, he actually resigned from his elective position, which means there's a constituency that he speaks for, more or less like a county that he speaks for. And I think it would be a little bit unfair to get, like, you know, someone who supported your campaign resign from their seat, and then, you know, you drop them over, you know, things that are maybe don't have like a strong basis, especially in terms of ethics and governance. Yes, there are a lot of allegations surrounding his time in the Ministry of Transport, especially JKIA, and just the deals around JKIA. And it would be interesting to see what his role was, you know, in some of these clandestine deals that we don't like. But I think that would be my take. Unless somebody has something that's tangible and touches on a CS nominee's ability, expertise, capacity to lead and govern, I think let them be given a chance to show us what they can do.
To show us what they can do.
Yeah.
Dr. Isaac, you know, the culmination of President William Ruto, or what culminated to President William Ruto actually dismissing his cabinet, were the issues by the Gen Z, the demands by the Gen Zs. And that included opulence, display of that. Murkomen was really on the spot then. And, you know, being in the maiden cabinet and dismissed. But again, when he's brought in to still relate with the issues of the youth. Do you find it a bit awkward?
Joel, I think, as my sister has put it very well, there are politics that plays in every game that the government also plays. Without politics, I don't think if they're able to make any significant progress. And that's why you see a string was pulled to bring ODM leadership into the cabinet. And similarly, there are cabinet secretaries who are in the previous offices who the president had to bring them back. And the reason is very obvious, that these are his political backyards, people who holds his politics. And you know, a government like Kenya, which we sleep with politics, we eat politics, and we wake up with politics, you must have or people called political wings that are, what do we call, there's a term that I wanted to use, but the people who are politically right on your side. And the reason as to why they should be right is that every other time or every step that the government takes, there are things that involves opposition, there are things that involves the government executing their mandate, and therefore it was obvious that those who had played that great role in shaping this government, regardless of their performance, had to come back again. However, other than arrogance and flashy life that they have shown Kenyans, I don't think if they have any incapability in terms of doing their work. I mean, these are people who are learned, these are people who have been in politics, these are people who have held offices before, and these are people who are able to articulate their issues very clearly when they are coming to the public. The only problem was that the whole setup came up with a crazy mind of arrogance and, you know, coming up with insensitive, you know, life towards the general public.
So what is the attitude that we are likely to see from Murkomen? You know, given the fact that it's the same youth that cost him his job.
Yes.
But again, he's brought on board to, you know, look into their demands.
Joel, if you look at very keenly how the notion of, or rather the environment of our political arena has changed. Forget about even the cabinet secretaries, even our parliamentarians never speak now with the authorities they used to speak with. And you see, even when they were being vetted, they were very careful with what they were to say. And therefore, I think our Gen Zs have humbled both our leaders, both in parliament and in executive, and we tend to think that one of the things that they will have to impress now is the way they will going to interact with the ordinary young people and give them what they are due to be given. Because one thing that I should emphasize is that if you have been given the job and you know you burnt your fingers because of your own way of behaving, and then now you have been given a second chance, it is time for you to redeem yourself. Well, and therefore, I tend to think they will be humbling themselves, and I tend to think they will be looking for a better way of approaching things as they talk to our young people.
We are taking a short commercial break. Jackson, do you believe Murkomen has now a change of attitude?
I don't think so. First of all, another thing, like Murkomen ni mtu mwenye amepractice law, so nikiona akipelekwa pale kwa sports, he knows nothing about sports. And even like Ababu na Mwamba alifail kwa place yake akiwekwa kama CS wa sports because hakuwa anajua what goes around sports. Like there was a friendly match, like there was a competition in Kenya, like we played a home game in Malawi, I think. And that was very wrong for such to be done. And I think if tuna place hawa watu hapo hivyo because they were loyal to the president, I think it's a wrong thing. Inafaa tuweke to place wanajua job yake.
Allow me to take a short commercial break at this juncture. When we come back, today is on 8th of August in Kenya. It's now Nane March. Gen Zs are back on the streets. Yet again, this is a litmus test for the government of national unity. We'll be having that conversation, but also I'll be sampling some of your views as they stream in the social media platforms at K24 TV, at George as well on SMS and WhatsApp numbers on the bottom of your screens. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.